Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of Musical Musings, airing every Wednesday at 1 p.m. We broadcast this program to you from Rajamachan University of Technology, Pranikon, and I will be bringing this program to you in two parts. For the first part of the program, I will introduce an artist and a song to you. We'll talk a little bit about the artist, and then we'll talk a little bit about the background of the song, including its main themes, which is what it's about, what the song is about. Then we will go ahead and listen to the song, and in the second part of our program, we will analyze the lyrics. We will especially focus on anything that's difficult to understand, any difficult vocabulary, difficult slang, or difficult sayings. And then that will be the end of our program. We will wrap it up after we go over the lyrics. Welcome, everyone. My name is Gary Gray, and I am your host for the Musical Musings program. I'm an American English teacher here at Rajamachan University of Technology, Pranikon. I have been teaching here for about 8 years now, a little more than 8 years, and we've been doing this program for more than 2 years now. So, for this program, why are we doing this musical program? Well, I find it helpful to incorporate music into the classroom sometimes. It helps the students learn a little bit. There are different things you might find in a song, or even in a movie, but it's a little hard to watch full movies in a classroom setting. I do it occasionally, but not very often. But you get different things, different English types from a song or a movie than you would get out of a textbook. Textbook is going to be more formal, talking about grammar, things like that. Well, we're learning another language in order to be able to communicate in that language, so we have to understand kind of the normal ways that we speak. You will find more of that in songs and in movies or TV programs. All of that sort of just kind of normal media that we will run into all the time. So that's why we're doing this musical program. Now, to this week, we're going to do something that's a little bit different. It's kind of the same thing we've been doing, you know. We talk about an artist, we talk about a song, we analyze the lyrics. But our choice of artist and song is a little bit weird this week. The artist is not really a singer. He sings a little bit. Obviously, he's going to sing this song. But he's not really a singer. That's not really what he does. And this song that we're doing also is not a real traditional song in the way we think about it. Now, to be clear, it did get popular. We talk about sometimes where a song hits in the charts. This got on the charts. It was popular. But it's not a normal song. It's actually a funny song. It's what we call a parody. It's making fun of another song, a song which is a real song. This is making fun of another song. Okay, so what is it we're doing? We are going to be doing the Ballad of Irving by a gentleman named Frank Gallop. Now, this is a little bit older song than we usually do. Not so much. We've done a few songs from the 1960s, and this came out in the 1960s. But this gentleman was already old by then, Frank Gallop. Most artists, if we're doing a song that's from that long ago, most of those artists were just starting out. So they were maybe 20 years old then. Some of them were actually 18, 19 years old that we've done on this program when they were performing the song that we were doing for the program. But this gentleman, Frank Gallop, was already about 66 years old when this song came out. So he was already old. Because, again, he wasn't really a singer. He was just doing this for fun. So Frank Gallop, what he really was a radio personality. He was born in 1900 in Boston, Massachusetts, which is in the United States. It's actually my hometown, sort of. I wasn't actually born in Boston. I was born in a very small town outside of Boston. But as far as being the closest big city to where I was born, it would be Boston, or maybe another smaller city called Providence, which is in Rhode Island. That may be a place you've never heard of. But I'm kind of halfway between Boston and Providence. So if someone asks me my hometown, someone that's not familiar with that area, so they're not going to know my little tiny town that I'm from, I would normally just say Boston. So he's from my hometown. Sort of. Okay, again, born in 1900. So this is a long time ago. And of course, that would make him 125 now. So obviously, he's not 125. So sadly, Frank Gallop has already passed away. He died in 1988. And again, like I said, he was a radio personality. One of the things he did on the radio, he did many things, but one of the things he did is he did soap operas. A soap opera, you think of them now as being on TV. If you're not familiar with that term, that's like a series that gets played on TV, usually every day, and it's usually a drama. It's a drama series on TV every day. That's a soap opera. Back then, since he's so old, he was born in 1900, he started before we had TVs. So they would do these dramas actually on the radio. And so he did a lot of those. He also did comedy, which is appropriate because we're doing a funny song today. So he did some comedy as well, especially with a gentleman named Milton Berle, who was actually very famous. So Frank Gallop himself, he wasn't all that famous. Got a little tiny bit famous, mostly because of the song we're going to do. But he was, I guess, a little bit well-known because he did do a lot of these radio soap operas. He did work with Milton Berle. As I told you, this one song he did get fairly popular. The radio station he was on in Boston, even though Boston isn't the biggest city in America, he was on a pretty good radio station. That radio station is still around today. In fact, because it's from my hometown, I will still go online onto YouTube and listen to or watch, because some of them they do streaming from the studio like we're doing here. You might be watching this on video on YouTube. It's a pretty big radio station. Still around today. And I watch it because they cover my sports teams back in my hometown. All right. So, again, not really a singer. Just he did a little bit of it here or there. He's more just a radio man. And this is back when radio was a big thing because it was before television. Obviously, by the time this song came out in 1966, we had television. But he was old by then. So for much of his career, it was before television. So he was really a radio guy. That's what he did. And in fact, for those of you watching this on YouTube, when we play the video, you're going to see there's not much to the video. They never really made a video for this song either, even after the fact. Sometimes someone will make a video afterwards. No, the video you're going to see is just still pictures, a lot of them being of Frank Gallop, just still pictures as the song plays. Okay, so speaking of that song, again, we're doing the Ballad of Irving. And again, it's a funny song. It's making fun of a song that was written about kind of a Western theme. You think of Westerns in America, it's like cowboys and things like that. And they were really popular, like in the 1960s and 70s. And so that's why especially the 60s really, that's why he did this song in the 60s. That was a really popular type of movie back then, is Westerns, and television programs as well. We actually had several television programs. In fact, the gentleman's song that he was parodying was not just a singer, he was also an actor, and he was in one of those television programs. I want to say that actor was in the television program Gunsmoke, but I could be wrong about that. Anyway, that doesn't really matter. That's not important. It's just to know a little bit about the background of this song is to know that it's a parody. He's making fun of this Western song. You know, this big, tough guy Western. And you'll see that Irving is not a tough guy. So this is a song. When we talk about a ballad of something, it's basically their story. A ballad is a story. In fact, sometimes you hear about music being described as a ballad. That's not really what this means. This does not mean this is ballad style. Means it's the story of Irving. A ballad style we usually think of as being softer, slower music, but really it's because it's softer and slower because it's telling a story. That's what a ballad means. Okay? And like I said, this song actually was popular. It got all the way up to number 34 on the Billboard chart. And the Billboard chart is the top 100. So this got in the top half. This got way up there. Top half. Now, it actually wasn't written by Frank Gallop. It was written by 3 other gentlemen. I do like to do songs that the person wrote, but we're doing this song because it's a funny song. And it actually does have several nice little things in here about English to go over. And Frank Gallop's really the only guy that ever performed this song, so we're doing Frank Gallop's version of it. Okay, so again, the song is about Irving, who is a sheriff. And he is a Jewish sheriff. Not that that matters. I'm sure there are plenty of Jewish sheriffs. They do make fun of that a little bit here. We should not make fun of people's religions, but they don't really make fun of it in a bad way. It's just kind of funny and cute how they combine it with him being a sheriff. And they kind of put the two together, so it's kind of an interesting. It makes the story funnier. So that's Irving. He's a Jewish sheriff, and he's not a very good one, and that's what the song is about, and that's why it's funny, because he's a terrible sheriff. All right, so let's get on to the song. Again, for those of you joining us by YouTube, we cannot embed the video here. As I said, there's not much of a video this time around, but just to stick with the normal process of what we do, we're going to give you the link to the video, and after you play that, you can jump back here for the second half of the program. And everyone else, listening on radio, streaming, whatever, you should be able to listen just fine. All right, let's get to the song.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Welcome back, everyone. Okay, so I hope you found that song mostly funny. I hope you understood most of it. There actually are quite a few good little learning points in this song, things that you might not have understood. So let's see. There are some Jewish customs here too that you may not be familiar with. I'm not Jewish, so I'm not even that familiar with them, but I do have a little bit of a Jewish background because I do have some Jewish blood in me, so I'm familiar with some of these things, but I'm mostly not. I did not grow up Jewish. I'm familiar with them just enough that I can kind of tell you what the lyrics are about. So there are some cultural references in here as well, which are about being Jewish. A lot of these learning points, though, are about like maybe sayings or ways that we use a word. Okay, so let's get right to it. It's a pretty funny song. Let's get right to it. So we start out, he was short and fat and rode out of the west with a Mogan David on his silver vest. Okay. Right away we have a weird word in there. What is a Mogan David? Okay, first of all, he's short and fat, rode out of the West. Okay, it's the West. Remember, it's the western part of the U.S. It's that cowboy style song. Okay, with a Mogan David on his silver vest. All right, so first of all, a vest, because we use that word two different ways, depending on whether it's British English or American English. In American English, a vest is like one of those shirts that has no sleeves that you put over top of another shirt. Most people don't wear them. They're a little bit weird. And the few times you ever see anyone wearing them these days, it's usually just because they're stylish. They look good. I do have one student who, from the last couple semesters, who would wear one all the time, actually. He liked wearing a vest. So you can still find them. People wear them, but they're not common. So that's what it is. It goes over top of your shirt. But what is a Mogan David on his silver chest? Okay, so Mogan David, that's another name for the Star of David. So you may be familiar with that, the star, like on the Israeli flag. That's a Jewish star. That's called a Mogan David. So he's got the Jewish star on his vest. Okay, he was mean and nasty right clear through, which is kind of weird because he was yellow too. All right, so someone's mean and nasty. When you say someone's nasty, nasty can mean gross and dirty. It doesn't mean that here. It's just another word for mean, really. You're just trying to emphasize the fact that he's mean by saying he's mean and nasty. It's just kind of another word for being mean. When you say right clear through, it means all of him. He has no nice side. He's just totally mean. And then it says, which was kind of weird because he was yellow too. Okay, so here we have our first slang term. Being yellow means that you are a coward. You are always afraid of stuff. And that's why it says it's kind of weird. Because you'd think someone mean, nasty. They're probably not going to be a coward as well. Well, Irving is. He's a coward. Okay? Then we get to what is kind of the chorus, but they change it around every time. So that's why I say kind of. The chorus would usually repeat. So this changes a little bit. They call him Irving. Big Irving. Now, I should be clear about something, because then the next line says Big Short Irving. Sometimes when you're talking about someone being big, you mean tall. Usually in English, when we talk about someone being big, we mean fat. So there's nothing wrong with saying Big Short Irving. That sounds like it doesn't go together. You can't be big and short. Yes, you can be. Yes, because we usually mean fat. And in fact, the very next line is Big Short Fat Irving. So, yes, Irving is short and fat. All right. The 142nd fastest gun in the West. All right, what does that mean? The 142nd fastest gun? It means exactly that. Like the fastest one would be number 1. Number 2 would be the second fastest. And when they say the fastest gun, it means to pull the gun out of your holster and shoot it. How fast can you do that? And they used to have competitions. Now, I don't think they'd keep track all the way down to 142nd. They're just being funny. But they would, but they may have a competition, and they would know who the fastest is, and the second fastest, and the third fastest, at least in that competition. So back then, they would do things like that in the Old West, like in the 1800s, which even though a lot of these television programs were from the 1960s, they were set in the 1800s. So Irving is not very fast. He's the 142nd fastest. So they're making fun of him again. He's not very good at what he does. Okay, the next verse. He came from the old bar mitzvah spread. A bar mitzvah is like a... I'm not going to give an entire description of exactly what that is. Just think of it like a party. It's a Jewish party. And the spread means, when you talk about there being a spread, it means a lot of food, like a big feast. They call it a spread because it's spread across the whole table. So they call it a spread. It's like a big feast. So he came from the Jewish feast, okay? So he came from the old bar mitzvah spread with a 10-gallon yarmulke on his head. Okay, that's pretty funny. That's funny because we're combining the whole sheriff thing with him being Jewish. There's something called a 10-gallon hat. It's basically like a huge cowboy hat. 10 gallons. I know we don't use gallons here in Thailand, but it's like a way you would measure water or milk in a bottle. And a gallon is, I don't even remember. Is that going to be about 2 liters or 4 liters? Oy. I'm a math and science person. I should know that. I don't remember. I want to say it's 2 liters, but I could be wrong. It could be twice that, roughly. It doesn't match exactly because it's 2 different styles of measurement. But it's really big. It's a big cowboy hat. And a yarmulke, it's actually spelled yarmulke, but it's pronounced yarmulke. That's the small cap that Jewish men will wear, kind of on the back. It's pushed a little bit towards the back of their head. But obviously not all the way in the back. It would fall off. But I mean, it's kind of on the top of their head, but it's a little bit in the back. It's the little round head covering they wear. So it's a religious head covering. Lots of religions have head coverings. So there's nothing funny about him wearing a yarmulke. That's fine. But he's got a 10-gallon yarmulke because he's a cowboy. I mean, he's the sheriff, but, it's the Old West. Like they would wear a big cowboy hat. So he's got a big cowboy yarmulke on his head. It's pretty funny. Okay, then we continue. He always followed his mother's wishes. Even on the range, he used 2 sets of dishes. Okay, so the first line there, he always followed his mother's wishes. Okay, that maybe is a little bit we probably shouldn't. That's kind of a Jewish stereotype about being like their mothers are so special to the sons. That's probably not really appropriate to say these days. This song, again, was written in 1966, so we weren't very sensitive back then. But even on the range, he used 2 sets of dishes. Okay, the range, that would be like where he lives. But usually at a range, there's going to be horses and things like that. It's almost like a farm, kind of. But it's more like your home. It's kind of like a combination, and it's called a range, and we call that a range. But he used 2 sets of dishes. So we're combining the whole. He's on a range. You think of that as being out in the West, and so it's combining the whole sheriff, Western cowboy sort of thing, and 2 sets of dishes. That's a Jewish thing. Again, I'm not totally familiar with the Jewish culture. I do know that there are certain foods that they don't want to touch each other. And usually they don't even like them to be on the same sorts of plates, on the same dishes, like even after you've washed the dishes. So you have 2 completely different sets. This food goes on this set of dishes, this food goes on that set of dishes. Okay? So we've got 2 sets of dishes. Back to the chorus. Irving, big fat Irving, big sissy Irving. I guess they call him a sissy here because he's close with his mother. I don't know. I don't think there's anything sissy about using 2 sets of dishes, which is kind of what they would be referring to here. But there's nothing sissy about that. That's just what they do in their religion. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, but it says big sissy Irving. So a sissy, in case you don't know, is like someone who's a weakling, maybe even effeminate. That's how that word is used. And so again, I think we're referring to the fact that he's close with his mother. Okay, big sissy Irving, the 142nd fastest gun in the West. All right, so the next verse is 141 could draw faster than he, but Irving was looking for 143. Okay, so you understand why this is funny? We already explained the rankings, right? So he's 142nd. 141 is faster than he is. When it says draw, that's what it's called when you take your gun out of the holster and lift it up to shoot it. That's drawing your gun. So 141 was faster, higher on the list, right? The list starts at number 1. But Irving's trying for 143. In other words, Irving's trying to get even worse. So he's just not very good at anything he does, okay? We continue on. Walked into Saul's saloon like a man insane and ordered 3 fingers of 2 cents plain. Okay, Saul, that's just the guy's name, walked into Saul's saloon like a man insane. So insane means crazy, out of his mind. So why is he out of his mind? Probably because of the next line. He ordered 3 fingers of 2 cents plain. All right, what the heck is this? 2 cents plain, what is that? Even I had to look this up. We don't use this term anymore. This is an old term. But it's basically soda water. Okay? And 3 fingers, what does that mean? All right, so back then, they didn't usually measure things directly. It would be the width of your finger. You'd hold that next to the glass, and you could get, and that would be the depth that they would fill your glass up to with whatever you're ordering. So you could get 2 fingers, 3 fingers, whatever, and that would be how high they would fill your glass. So he's ordering 3 fingers of whatever 2 cents plain is. Okay, so 2 cents plain is soda water. That's it. It's soda water. So why is this insane? Well, because we're talking about the Old West, and he goes into a saloon. A saloon is a bar. Back today, you know, these days you go to a bar, maybe some people don't always drink. So you're with your friends. Most of you are drinking, but maybe someone doesn't like alcohol. They're just going to have some soda. Something like that. That's fine. No big deal. Back then, the Old West, you go into a saloon to drink. Everyone's drinking. And he goes in there and orders soda water. And again, it's not soda. It's soda water. So that it's not sweet at all. It does not taste good. It's carbonated water. It does not taste very good. And that's all he orders. And that's why the song calls him a man insane. He's crazy. Okay. Then we get to the chorus again. Irving, big fat Irving. And this time we say big sport Irving. I'm not sure why they're calling him a sport here. To call someone a sport, when you say you're a big sport, it means you're someone who can kind of go along with something that's kind of funny, but maybe they're playing a little bit of a trick on you, so it's maybe a little tiny bit mean, but you know, you understand that it's just a joke, so you go along with it. It's okay, you laugh at it. That's being a good sport. So when you say he's a big sport, not sure what he means really with that line, to be honest with you. Going into the saloon and ordering soda water, they may just be mocking him for really not being a sport, because at least get in with the fun, get a drink. And the way they say that line in the song, it does sound mocking. So it might be mocking Irving for not being a sport. Okay, the 142nd fastest gun in the West. All right, next verse. One day Bad Max happened into town. When you say someone happened into something, it just means he came to town. So one day Bad Max happened into town. His aim was to shoot Fat Irving down. Okay, your aim also means your goal. So Bad Max came to town. He wants to shoot Irving and kill him. When you say shoot him down, it means kill him. Wants to kill him. Okay, Bad Max said draw, and draw right now. And Irving drew a picture of a cow. Okay, so that's funny. So draw. So Bad Max says draw. Again, remember I explained to you, draw means to take out your gun and get ready to shoot. Irving drew, as in wrote, as in drew a picture. He drew a picture of a cow. All right. And we get the chorus again. Irving, big fat Irving, big gunfighter Irving. So again, we're mocking him because he's not a gunfighter. We call that sarcasm. When you say someone is something, but you mean that they're not, that's called sarcasm. So he's not a big gunfighter. So we say big gunfighter Irving, just like big sport Irving. It's sarcasm. He's not a big sport. He's not a big gunfighter. The 142nd fastest gun in the West. Next verse, lots of verses here. The James boys was coming on a train at first sun, and the town said, Irving, we need your gun. Okay, so the James boys are coming on a train at first sun. First sun just means when sunrise, and the James boys are bad guys. So the James boys, it's a group of bad guys. James is probably their last name. Like there's a famous outlaw called Jesse James in American culture, so we're probably talking about him and his brothers. They're coming to town when the sun comes up tomorrow. And the town said, Irving, we need your gun. Now, to understand the next two lines, you need to understand what that line means. When it says, we need your gun, it doesn't mean, give us your gun because we need it. It means we need you with your gun to stand up to the James boys, because they're gonna like steal from everyone. They're gonna rob people, maybe kill people. So, Irving, we need you and your gun. All right? So that's what that means when we say, Irving, we need your gun. But then the next two lines, it says, when that train pulled in at the break of dawn, Irving's gun was there, but Irving was gone. I don't think I need to explain those two lines. When the train pulled in, that's what we call it when it arrives. Pulls in. When the train pulls in at the break of dawn. Break of dawn means like as soon as the sun comes up. Irving's gun was there, but Irving was gone. So they said they needed his gun, so he left his gun and he took off. Irving. Big fat Irving. Big help Irving. Again, sarcasm. He is not helpful. He just disappeared. So that's sarcasm again. Big help Irving. The 142nd fastest gun in the West. All right, finally, we get the last verse. Well, finally, Irving got 3 slugs in the belly. It was right outside the Frontier Deli. Okay. 3 slugs means 3 bullets. So he took 3 bullets in the stomach. Okay, right outside the Frontier Deli. This is also supposed to be funny, making fun of the fact that he's Jewish, that he's at a deli. A deli is basically just a sandwich shop. And for the longest time in American culture, it's really associated with Jewish people. Jewish people would run the delis. A lot of Jewish people would go to the delis and get sandwiches. Honestly, everyone goes to a deli now because they have good sandwiches. So a deli is just a deli. But back then, this is from 1966, this song is, you might think of it as being a Jewish place to go and eat. So it was right out. And the frontier, that's like means the West. In America, well, it means more than that, but like in American history, in the 1800s, the West would be the frontier. So the name of the deli is the Frontier Deli. So it was right outside the Frontier Deli. He was sitting there twirling his gun around, and Butterfingers Irving gunned himself down. Okay, so he's twirling his gun around. That just means you're spinning it around. You've maybe seen people do that in movies, spin their gun around. He's spinning his gun around. Butterfingers Irving gunned himself down. All right, that should be easy enough to understand with gunning himself down, but maybe you don't understand the word Butterfingers. Okay, Butterfingers means you're clumsy, you're uncoordinated, you have a lot of accidents, and it's related to the fact that butter, think of butter, is like very oily. Butter fingers, you have oil on your fingers. Your fingers are very slippery. You're going to drop things. You're going to have trouble handling things because your hands are covered in oil. That's what Butterfingers means. Slippery fingers. Slippery fingers, having accidents. So, his slippery fingers, and he pulled the trigger on himself 3 times even, because he got 3 slugs in the belly. So Butterfingers Irving gunned himself down. Then we get the last chorus. Again, they change it. Irving, big fat Irving, big dum-dum Irving, big dum-dum dead Irving. 142nd fastest gun in the West. Really? Okay, so The only thing there that might be a little confusing is the word dum-dum. I don't know. You know what the word dumb means, I think. Yeah, it means the same thing. Sometimes we just say dum-dum instead of dumb. So, he's saying he's not very smart. And that is the Ballad of Irving by Frank Gallop. That is a fun song. Back around that time, in the late 1960s and through the 1970s, some of these funny songs like this were actually quite popular. There's one I want to do on the program because it actually is by a very famous singer. Most of the times these type of songs weren't done by famous singers. But I don't know if I can do it because it kind of has a dirty meaning to it, even though the words themselves aren't dirty. And it's called My Ding-a-Ling. That's a very funny song. So these funny songs were kind of popular back then, which is why this one got all the way up to number 34. So, there you have it. The Ballad of Irving by Frank Gallop. I always close out by telling you more songs by the artist. Obviously, this guy's not a singer. I got not much else to tell you about Frank Gallop. So that is really just about it for our program. So thank you for joining us for today's Musical Musings program. And I would encourage any young people out there to look into our university. We have a great university here at Rajamakan, University of Technology, Peranakan. Also, please stay with us and tune back in next week for another great song. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.
Musical